minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the scrub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with
Happy 4th of July weekend. You're now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. Trap Talk presents the Tarter Boys session where chicken isn't meat. What's up, dude? The fuck?
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, of course, there's Andrew making a late present. Hey, here he is. What the fuck? I like how I say we're going live and leave. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Oh, I thought there was going to be a whole intro.
There is, but you know, we go right into it now. I don't do the whole typical go down the whole list of intro and waste 8-10 minutes anymore. Those days are done. But what is good, fellas? How are you? Okay, first off, loved your goatee, Steven. What motivated you to rock that?
Good question. It just kind of happened and I roll with it.
Did you see somebody at the gym wearing it, or like what? I mean, was it a movie or what? What?
No,
I was
it
curious.
was just life. Man. Life just told me to do it, and hey, roll with it. Here I am.
Andrew, would you ever rock a goatee?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to, but I'm too baby faced, so if I could, I would.
When I was 23, I don't think I could grow a beard until I was like 26. 26, 27 is when I could actually like let something fill out. So I'm with you on the baby face stuff. But anyways, Tarter Boy session live in effect. I appreciate you guys being here. Shout out to everyone who's in the building. Shout out to all the early birds in the comments. If this is your guys' first time tapping in, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you can stay on top of every Tarter Boy session. But boys, what is good? How has the last few weeks been? Shit, last time we talked was been about a month ago. And as always, one thing about this session, why it's called the Tarter Boy sessions, because we always have so much shit going on. We are always, all of us are knee deep in something, right? But it's all good stuff. So first and foremost, Andrew, start with Andrew. How's things been with you, Andrew? What's new? What's going on your side of things?
Things have been good. I've just been traveling a lot, so just trying to juggle all that, honestly. So that's really been the gist of most of my summer, if I'm being honest with you. So I got a trip coming up. I'll be seeing you shortly, and then right after that, I'm back to traveling again. So really just trying to take advantage of the nice weather here and do as much as I can. But for the most part, everything's been okay.
The amount of traveling is definitely new to you. Like you, I mean, this year
no,
I feel
sorry to cut you off, but no, I grew up traveling throughout.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah. But there was definitely a time period where I was taking a break. I think the longest time I went without leaving the country was about 2.5, 3 years, and that was the time where I was just grinding, doing snake stuff. So that was really the only reason why I couldn't travel. But I'm fortunate enough to be in a position now to where I can. So I try to utilize that as much as possible and travel as much as I can.
Is it more of a just the fact that traveling's always been a part of something you want to do in life? Like, is that something why you always kind of? I mean, like for instance, you told me you're about to go to Peru, and you have a lot of stuff that you want to continue to do with traveling, right?
Yeah, for sure. I can honestly say it's been fun, but at the same time, it's really hectic. It interferes with a couple things, but at the same time, I wouldn't want it any other way. So
I'm sure people are thinking how you take care of the collection when you're gone. I mean, how's that happen? How's that been going?
Fortunate enough to have an employee that I'm very close friends with, and he's kind of on the same page as me, and just fortunate enough to make it happen. And we just have a good relationship and solid foundation and trust. And it's the only reason. If it wasn't for Alan, no way any of this would be possible. So shout out to him.
And if I remember correctly, he had no snake experience, like zero, and you kind of started from the ground up, or he always had snakes. He always had snakes.
He was always interested in animals, but not like never kept snakes, never worked with them, never went herping or did any of that. All that stuff is so new to him. So I mean, he went into the deep end real fast. I mean, I got to just take him herping. He got to see a bunch of different sides of that, and then also getting to work with animals and go to other people's facilities to where he wouldn't get the opportunity. At least I don't think so. He would at least have the opportunity to do that, kind of like coming into this with no prior experience.
Right. And then I'm also curious, how much training did you actually work with them, like side by side before?
You kind of months. It was all like me being right next to him and just guiding him. I mean, I still do that. He knows what to do for sure, but it's definitely something that I don't have to look at every single thing that he does. He knows what to do for the most part. So very grateful to have him and very fortunate. And
fucking Steven, what's good, buddy? I mean, other than the goatee, what's new on your end? How's everything? How's Cold Blooded Cafe?
Yeah, everything's doing great. Can't really complain right now. Just kind of moving forward. We got obviously 4th of July week this week. So with Cold Blooded Cafe, that means that we have to kind of modify our shipping procedures, not ship out some further orders that would get delayed over the weekends due to the holiday, etc. So that always kind of creates a bit of a bump in the road, but it's something that we just got to roll with. And reptile stuff is going well. Got eggs cooking, more eggs coming. So
specifically, what kind of eggs, if you don't mind? If you don't, can we talk about it, or just eggs in general, huh?
Yeah, snake eggs.
Chicken eggs.
Chicken eggs. Chicken's not a meat, though. You know that, right, Andrew? I don't know if you knew that, but chicken's not meat.
It's foul.
It's foul.
It's foul.
We'll get into that in a minute. Okay. So, I mean, as much as things are happening, what is, if you can compare, Steven, production this year versus last year, are you looking to have a lot more on your plate when it comes to that this year, you feel like?
Yeah. Last year we kind of laid an egg. And not literally, like we had a pretty crap year. And already we're doing better than we did last year. So we had a female emerald go full term, lay a bunch of slugs and then die. Had a scrub clutch that completely crapped out last year. So couple real bad hits, couple annulated boas that slugged out as well. But we're already looking like we're doing a bit better. Here in the next few weeks, we're going to be starting some pairs with some of the Montaigne venomous stuff we do. So that should be exciting. This is the first year of getting any of those projects really rolling on breeding.
Nice. There's also, I mean, are they called blue beauties or something that you guys already produced again this year? Right.
Yeah. We do have more eggs of those as well right now, incubating.
And how's those hatch rates been going for you? I mean, I remember the first clutch or something like that. It was kind of like funky about how they came out.
Yeah, the first clutch was kind of rough. My guess is that they got too hot. And also sometimes with colubrids, their first clutches don't always turn out the best. So second clutch was a lot better. And hopefully this time for the third clutch, we get a as good of a hatch rate as we can. So got 12 good eggs right now. Hopefully that results in 12 healthy babies.
We were talking a little bit before we went live as far as incubation temps for a scrub clutch. And, you know, you mentioned something, Stephen, about dropping temperatures, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, like ball pythons, you don't do that, right? Retics, Andrew, you didn't have me drop any bread. It was straight through, right? But obviously what I felt like I did that helped at least get what I get out of my chondros was that drop I did that certain day. And you also believe with scrubs, there should be a drop, correct?
Yeah, I mean so scrub pythons haven't been produced in great numbers, obviously, compared to retics or green trees. One story that I'd heard that I kind of really took to heart was a breeder had been having a hard time with hatching his scrub clutches out. That everything would be good until the last few weeks, and then everything would go downhill. So they reached out to Tracy Barker, and she said that in her experience, scrub python eggs gave out a disproportionately large amount of heat compared to other python eggs in the last few weeks of incubation. So without dropping the temperatures in the overall incubator, they were kind of cooking themselves within the egg box. So in the past, with the first scrub clutch that we did, over the last few weeks, I dropped the temperatures about 2 degrees in total, kind of incrementally, half a degree at a time until they hatched.
Okay. And basically, I think you said this before, but remind me, the temps for the hatchling at that point is what? Once they're out of the egg, what's the ideal temp for them?
So when that clutch hatched, when they hatched out, I put them right into individual setups right away. And they were just ambient in our room during the summer. So they were about 79 to 82 at any given time after they hatched, just straight ambient.
Okay.
Looking back at it now, I have not with reticulated pythons, but for dwarf monitors in particular, Varanus kingorum, king rock monitors. I've dropped temperatures on the last stages of egg development, and had success. But I've also killed just eggs. Just they can be fidgety and real sensitive. So just in my experience, I tried it. I did get eggs to hatch. But I also have had them hatch without lowering the temp. So I can't say that is the said reason as to why they were successfully hatched.
I mean, one thing that would definitely fuck with your head is thinking what you could do with one species of eggs you could do with the others, and that's just not the case. Like, for instance, like cutting a goddamn ball python egg so goddamn early, you could get away with that. Definitely no, you can't do that with other things, just so you guys know. Okay, it's very bad. And that's unfortunate, but you got to learn those lessons, I feel like. Other big lessons in life, or let's just talk about the powerful things in life. Importation. At the end of the day, man, there's certain people who are importers because they have things that people want. It's very powerful, I feel like, right? But as much as trendy and things are getting with certain species, people have to go through importation or importers and whatnot. But there's a lot of things to be wary about. And I kind of want to tap into the whole market of the import game. Talk about steps I feel like you guys are necessary thinking is important when getting into it, because at the end of the day, you guys aren't against getting something that's imported if it's something that important. Is that correct?
No, not at all.
No. I think importation is a blessing and a curse.
Blessing and a curse, but it's like, it's something you don't really know until you know, right? Like it's like my for instance, me, the fucking emeralds I bought, as beautiful as they are, I didn't know what was going to deal with, and I got them, and here I am. I have finally got that girl to eat fucking since February. It's just, who knows what she ate. But anyways, certain steps are, I feel like, necessarily made properly if you want to have some sort of, because I mean, listen, I feel like it's cool that people are wanting to get into other species that aren't like the typical fucking like hognose or ball python, like trendy. Like I do in the sense see that people are passionate about wanting to keep different shit, but how should they go about it? Like what's one way, Steven, that you could maybe start off telling people, getting into a species that's mainly imported species, but how do you adapt getting into it when you have no experience?
I mean, as with anything, I think really it comes down to making good contacts and acquiring the information that you need, because obviously all of us, the three of us all work with animals that were imports, and we've had success and we've had failure, kind of everything in between. But that's, it's different, you know, when you've been doing ball pythons, when you've been doing leopard geckos or crested geckos, or, you know, something that's widely bred in captivity. It's a totally different ball game, but it's not necessarily a system that's setting you up for failure. I think, as with almost anything in reptiles, there's extremes on how people approach it. Obviously, if you ask somebody who's selling this imported reptile, they're probably going to tell you as much as they can about why it's a good idea to buy from them, because they want to make the sale. And then, you know, then there's people who will be like, get this animal in, and here's my insane protocol of all of the treatments I run on it right away. And you know, I think there's another extreme on it. So yeah, I think the two drugs of choice that most people recommend are Panacur and Flagyl, which are dealing with, you know, the gastrointestinal tract with parasites, et cetera, et cetera. You know, all reptiles in the wild are going to live with some level of a parasite load. It's just how it is. But the process of being imported suppresses their immune system, and it allows for that parasite load to grow. To me, I think the true test of if an animal is going to be healthy and is going to survive is if you kind of let it fend for itself for a little bit. When I first get an imported reptile in, particularly snakes, I set them up in the quarantine area simply with what they need. And then I just kind of, there's a dog somewhere around here lurking, distracting.
Cool.
I do too. Anyway, so I just kind of let them, you know, let them show me kind of where they're at with their health. Let them settle in, try to get a couple meals into them, see what their stool looks like, see if they put on any weight before kind of going to that. Okay, now what? I feel like calming their immune system, reducing their stress is almost, I mean, I'm not even gonna say is definitely more important than treating them for anything. Obviously, external parasites is one thing that's pretty easy, straightforward, standard procedure that's minimally invasive on them. But you know, before they're even consuming meals, pumping them full of worming medications, I think can almost have an inverse effect if it's too extreme and too quick.
Adding unnecessary stress to the body that
exactly.
The body doesn't need to go through.
Well, there's other kind of stress I feel like you could put on a freshly imported snake is getting it to want to eat so quickly. I mean, I feel like, you know, I feel like signs are everything, right? If a snake is like hitting the fucking tub or giving you aggression of like, hey, like I'm trying to eat, that's not a bad thing. But where do you guys feel like you draw the line on, like, you know, pressing it too quick to want to eat? Or, I mean, Andrew, if you want to break this one down, how do you approach?
Personally, I never, if an animal doesn't eat right away, I mean, that's not a sign of anything essentially wrong. It's just you have to realize, I mean, in particular, we're talking imports here. So if we're talking about particularly snakes that come from Indonesia, you know, everything is different. The temperature, the humidity, the barometric pressure. I mean, but also not even that. The animal was collected from where it's found, captured, put it, and then sent halfway across the world. I mean, most animals or most individuals alone would not be too thrilled with that. So for a snake to want to not eat right away, that isn't the biggest sign of, oh, something's wrong here. Really just leaving them alone and just allowing the least amount of stress to occur in its environment is key. And eventually when that animal's hungry, it will come around.
And so
healthy animals eat for sure. In
your experience, Andrew, when you just see something just not interested, like when is your next approach? I'm sure because there's so many different ways. Like when would you offer that thing of food? Like if do you wait for signs or do you?
I usually, all right, let's put a hypothetical scenario. If I were to get a snake imported in, I would wait minimum 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for that animal to adjust before offering it food. And then if it doesn't eat, wait another 2-3 weeks and reapproach from there, and then maybe possibly offer a different food item. For example, if it didn't eat frozen, maybe offer live. If it didn't take either of those, maybe offer it a bird, fowl. But yeah.
Right. How many times in your experience, Steven, have you had like import not eat for you and end up dying? I mean, is that usually a scare for you if an import isn't eating for you right away, or are you like Andrew and it's you let it kind of get through the process?
It really depends on the species. You know, for me, primarily what I've dealt with imports are scrub pythons, and no, I don't get particularly worried about that. They're a lower metabolism animal that maintains its body chemistry for longer, maintains its muscle mass for longer, and sometimes they can go long periods of time without food and be okay. You know, if something like an emerald tree boa, as far as from a life or death standpoint, I wouldn't necessarily think that a food, you know, a fast would be a life or death kind of thing. But, you know, for some colubrids that are higher metabolism, higher stress, some lizards and stuff like that, I think, you know, you might be looking at a little bit more of an imminent kind of situation where, you know, you need to get food in this animal or it's not going to make it. But then some of those species are ones that have a very low success rate in captivity, right, where you know, they have either very low body fat or just generally very lean species, higher metabolism. Some of those really like visually oriented type of snakes that stress out very quickly. With colubrids in particular, I've treated them the same way as pythons when I've gotten them in. Is, you know, a smaller tub. It might be an arboreal. I don't care. Putting it in a smaller tub where you're going to eliminate the visual stimulation, really create that kind of stable environment and promote them eating. And then, like Andrew said, different prey items, live, frozen, birds, whatever.
Let's break this down real quick, guys, because I'm not going to say any fucking names, even though I really want to. I'll tell you guys after the show. But popularity with certain species, like the foundation species, like ball pythons, right? These motherfuckers are tapping into other breeders who are getting sick shit. Like, you know, for instance, Kabelka getting a couple chondros. Kabelka has a super dwarf now. So all these people are like wanting to jump on that now. And, you know, for instance, like, you know, I can only give you the time of day if you're willing to accept it. And one thing I can't fucking stand is how people want to get chondros and put it in a fucking, like, if it's a baby, they want to put it in like something visual. So like, I want to be able to see it.
And give it a perch this thick, like,
yeah,
this
like
thick
giving
around.
a stick, whatever, just not giving a proper, and no matter how you explain it to them, why you should just give it a simple setup where who cares if you could see it. They're just very against that. And I want maybe your guys' help on why it's important to not care about what you want as the keeper. It's more important what's been known to help these things get on the right track quicker. And that's putting something in and listen, shout out to the sponsor, Focus Youth Habitat. Just want to say, shout out to sponsor, nothing against them, right? But they also have these 12 by 12 little 1 foot cube. And a lot of people are trying to go that route and put a Neo in. I'm not saying it's impossible to keep, but why risk it? And that's what I want to talk about too, on why not go a route that a lot of people use and could stand by versus just saying, fuck it, if I pay X amount of money, I want to be able to sit down and look at it.
I could say if that's their mentality towards it, they're only taking themselves into consideration. Because for an instance like that, if you have an animal that needs certain needs which aren't much in order to thrive, and you're deciding not to do that, I mean, you can see where that person's narrative is with that, you know, and their outlook of how they want to keep the animal, because they're making it about them than about the animal. And certain species just don't fly, you know, with that type of mentality. So
that's just kind of the wrong approach to the hobby, the wrong type of person to have in the hobby. Somebody is not willing to learn and not willing to put the needs of the animals before their own wants. And I mean, I don't know.
The animal will always pay the price.
There's not much you can really say. Like, I think everything that needs to be said has been said a number of times. I just hope that sellers do a better job of vetting out people like that who are only looking out for themselves in that situation.
And I feel like there's I mean, I don't want to say it's deliberately done, but I feel like some sellers almost neglect the information to pass down, almost wanting them to fuck up. I'm not saying every seller's like that, but I feel like some sellers try hardly anything to set this person up for success. Like, it's like kind of you really let them put a red bulb over their cage. Like, why would you let that happen? Like, And I'm seeing it because I'm getting like them asking me, hey, what's wrong with my snake? And I'm like, well, where'd you get that from? Like, what the fuck? Like, where's the assistance? And I don't know. That's why I feel like for instance, let's talk about Justin, right? Justin does have his shit in a 4x2, right? But where did Justin's snake come from? It came from Bill Stiegel, who established it in a goddamn rack system for I don't know how long. And then when that snake got a year and a half to 2 years old, he went ahead and put it in something with a glass door. But you don't understand, that snake wasn't just raised in a fucking 4x2. You know what I'm saying? So that's why a lot of people don't really understand how one snake is look like. You know, you see our snakes in something like that. You know, you understand it was not raised like that. And I just wish people would consider the experience versus like the self. Like, well, I feel like I could do it. Like, you know, like the Bioactive fucking first handers, like the ones who want to go. Like there was somebody today in the fucking Emerald Tree Boa Facebook. Like, I'm looking for assistance on how to get into my first emerald tree, and I want it to be Bioactive.
I can't say it's not unobtainable. I'm not that it's not unobtainable. I think just you'd have. I mean,
ready.
I think I don't see why not. You can do a Bioactive setup in a tub.
But why? Like, I'm just saying, like, why?
I mean,
like,
I personally wouldn't. If you want to go through the hassle, you can.
It's going to be harder to look at things. Like, it's going to be harder to see what's falling off that snake. Like, it's just like, you don't understand.
I wouldn't recommend it personally.
Here's the thing. Like, when I say, oh, Bioactive, I'm saying, like, right off the go, why would you do that? I'm saying, why would you want to do that when you just got the snake? Like, the reason why you keep things over a paper towel or puppy pad or something that you could see clearly that's on the mat. I mean, I've even had an import snake one time shit out parasites. Like, it looked like Alien 2. It was terrible. They were fucking like worms this long. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen. This was like 2018 too, so fuck yourself if you think that's still happening. That was some JS type shit while back then. But I'm just saying, it was fucking nutty. It was insane. I don't even know where I was going with that. What were we talking about? God damn, we're deep, boys. But no, but anyways, what I'm saying is I was able to see majority of the shit what was happening with the snake because how simple the setup was. And, you know, I don't know, like I've seen rooms decked out. I've seen rooms with live plants and shit. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but there's just ways of getting to that level. And if you want to have that kind of workload, that's fine, because that is all workload. I mean, we should watch the vlog I did with Dennis McNamara. Dennis McNamara. God damn it. Say it, Steven. Yes, that's that. Sorry, Dennis. I love you, man. Big guy. But anyways, he was like, dude, we'd have all Bioactives, but everything has a huge drainage thing at the bottom. Like, it's fucking like, you got to be able to treat that thing and drain that thing every week. You know, I don't think people understand the workload that comes with Bioactives. And I mean, keeping one, I feel like that's cool. But think about people who have like 20 plus arboreals that want to keep things in a Bioactive. Like, you're going to run into problems, I feel like.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't do it, but you can technically do anything.
Creates a lot more work if something goes wrong. Like, for instance, you know, you have a new animal that has mites, and now you have mites in your collection, and you have, you know, a bunch of Bioactive enclosures with live plants and stuff like that, and
with mites. And what the fucking thing about mites is they live off moisture, like meaning like anything wet, they can live within that water. It's crazy. And you literally, how are you going to dry out a Bioactive fucking enclosure? You have to gut that thing out. It's done. You have to gut it out, start all over. And then guess what? Are you going to vlog it? I hope so. Put it on. Let's see. Tell us about it. You know what I'm saying?
A couple years ago, I dealt through that. I had snakes in Bioactive setups, and fortunately had a snake that came in and had mites and learned the hard way.
Yep, 110%.
Wouldn't do it again, but I don't know.
Steven, you there? Did you freeze up? Okay, look at that. Look at that goatee. Steven, you there?
He's there.
There he is.
Yeah. Say you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, you kind of got a little glitchy there, but you're good now.
I mean,
I would exit out and come back in.
Sign out thing, or
exit out, come back in. Yeah, you're laggy. But yeah, listen, at the end of the day, like you said, I'm not opposed, and it's not impossible to go the Bioactive route, but like when you have, like, think about like one of your best super dwarf customers, somebody that you kind of groomed, somebody that you've like have success, and then they want to dabble into something that takes a little bit more not brain power, but a little bit more like a different approach, and they just don't want to take your advice, you know. And this is, And that's what kind of gets frustrating, I feel like.
I've never had anyone that came into the snakes that I work with and then decided to work their way into something else other than you know, but that was more just like a friendship, you know, but, you know, more than a customer base. But yeah.
Shout out to Serpent Eclipse. Andrew took care of me and gave me a lot of knowledge with the pair I bought from him. Helped me out a lot getting prepared for keeping my D's and SD retics. Hell yeah. Respect.
Yeah.
Andrew, I'm telling you right now, man, you got a lot of people that you've definitely helped out, myself including. And I don't know. I mean, do you feel like you're starting to see a lot of growth from your own customers at this point since you've kind of started selling super dwarf retics?
For the most part, I mean, I was outsourcing to another individual. I mean, I still do. So, I mean, I don't make everything that I produce available, but the animals that I do throughout the years, I've had a couple individuals that, you know, really took it serious and are right now at the early stages of possibly seeing their first clutch this coming season. So it's always cool to see that come into fruition, raise those, you know, get little babies, raise them up, and pretty much guide them through the whole thing. I mean, there's just a handful of people, but they've really taken what I've taught them and to heart, and I hope and I wish them the best success.
I want to clear the air on something because I don't want to look at it like this, but like I don't know. I don't want to say I frown, but it kind of cringes me when I see people like passionate to want to pair a super dwarf to like a dwarf, like, you know what I'm saying? And I know super dwarfs and dwarfs are big, you know, and I know you broke down ternates in those kind of localities and how it's like not really, it does, like they're almost as, I don't want to say the same, but
no, they're different. They're completely different animals. I mean, they're from completely different island chains. Have not.
Are you against super dwarfs and dwarfs breeding yourself, or like how do you look at that?
Like as far as pures go, I mean, like I personally, I mean, I've made it was a breeding with a buddy of mine. It was a pure ternate that we bred to a pure Calato. It was a pure Calato male bred to a pure ternate female. We called them super Malukus because, you know, super dwarf and then northern Maluku, and just put 2 and 2 together. But we just wanted to make them just because one snake has very busy pattern, the other has heavy black ticking, and trying to implement both of those into one snake, and I'm very happy with the results. So yeah, I mean, I personally would do it. I'm not against really, you know, anything as long as it's ethical and not, you know, you're not hurting the animal.
Let's talk about the percentage of those snakes then. You know, those snakes
are
would
50-50.
50% dwarf, 50% super dwarf.
Well, ternate is not. It is. There's been no scientific study to back up that they are quote unquote dwarf. They are smaller growing snakes that come from a completely different island chain that have similar size characteristics. For example, if I wanted to refer them to something that people are familiar with, I would say a dwarf is, for example, maybe like a Slayer or a Coyote in the size reference to that they're comparable to, but they're not on any terms a dwarf or super dwarf. They just have similar size characteristics, but from a completely different island chain.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just want to know what the I mean, everything has a big purpose behind it, and I was curious about it. Other than that project where you produced when you went to a pure to something that's not a super dwarf, is that something you're going to continue to do, or do you have plans to continue to do?
Oh yeah, for example, with certain recessive projects, I mean, we have to start with implementing a mainland morph into a pure super dwarf. So I mean, I'm implementing mainland blood into super dwarf and trying to revise and add on whatever it is that I'm trying to work with. If I was giving an example, maybe orange ghost stripe. So if I were to breed a mainland orange ghost stripe to a pure super dwarf, every baby is 50%. For example, let's use Calatoa, 50% Calatoa, 100% head orange ghost stripe. All those babies are normal looking, but I would have to raise those animals up and either breed them back to each other or another head orange ghost stripe visual in order to see it.
For the most part,
but yeah,
go ahead.
No, I mean, there's so much stuff, especially with, you know, locality morph crosses that have yet to be added in for how much there's actually on the spectrum, for how many different genetic mutations there are, especially within on the recessive side of things, that people have, you know, we haven't even really broke the surface. It's still really within its infancy as far as what we're going to see. And Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, that's how a lot of the morphs that I have and originated started with, you know, renaming animals to pure localities in order to make the first 50 percenters and then go on from there.
Steven, what do you guys have? I know you guys have some Garrett Hartle's stock or no, or is it just Andrews? Like you have some sort of retics. Well, can you tell me what you guys have right now?
We do. So we have 2.2 Kalatoas, and we have a pair of Halmaheras. So the Halmaheras came from Andrew, and then the 3 of the Kalatoas are from the Reach Streams line that Forrest and Garrett started.
Nice.
So we have 3 animals from that line, and then 1 unrelated Kalatoa.
The Halmaheras, man. God damn. There was kind of a dispute. Andrew, remind me what this is. Halmaheras are compared to Tarnates or something like that. Not compared, but
I mean,
similar.
they're both animals from northern Maluku island chains, but 2 completely different islands. I mean, they have similar characteristics, but definitely 2 different snakes. Halmas are, as far as demeanor goes, just naturally way more bitey snakes. But
and is that the case, Stephen?
His have calmed down a lot, but I'm sure when you first got them,
they've gotten worse. They've gotten worse, dude.
Oh,
the male was
take back what I said.
A puppy dog, and then one day, boom! Now he's the most aggressive snake in the collection.
How big are they? How big are they now?
They'll make you.
The male's like 6 foot. The female's like 4.5.
Damn, they got big.
Yeah,
I mean it's not big, but
they're 2 years old. No, those animals are creeping on 2 years of age. They're not very big for what they are.
Well,
they come out of the egg very large. They come out. They have these colubrid like eggs. They're very oval like, and instead of most Champianus and animals from the dwarf and super islands, most of the time it's like ping pong style eggs.
Right.
That's not for every locality, but for what I'm used to familiar seeing smaller, rounder eggs. But as the animals from that island range are much different, completely different egg weights, head scalation, and and incubation too.
And the projects you guys are sitting on, Super Dwarf and the Halmahera wise, Steven, those are passionately sought after. Like those are something you guys really want to work with. It's mainly just like the Halmahera stuff. You've always been a huge fan, right? And you were stoked to get those.
Yeah, for sure. You know, one of the barbecues we had before Tinley, Andrew brought a couple Halmaheras. I didn't even know that they existed before then. And obviously being a scrub python guy, having Halmahera scrubs, it was really cool to know that there's another python species that's coming from there. And kind of, you know, seeing how different they are from the rest of the retic complex, and almost kind of equating that to how different Halmahera scrubs are from, you know, Barneck, Southerns, etc. They kind of they evolved, I guess, different or like in a similar way where they're kind of darker than the rest of their complex. I just thought that was super cool, and I just really liked how they looked. So it was
really dark, almost like the best way to describe it. Sorry to interrupt, Steven, but like IMG boas for people that aren't familiar with it. They start off dark, but as they get older, they progressively get darker and darker, more like this eggplant color palette. It's the best way to kind of describe it. Really dark underbelly.
Too.
Say that again, Steven?
They keep their contrast very well. Where like the IMG boas, that contrast will kind of go away with time.
I'm just comparing that as a snake that gets darker with age.
Sure.
Right. Now, why would okay, if there's a comparison to some people with the Tarnates and the Halmaheras, is there a price difference on these out if they're out there?
As far as Halmas, there are only, as far as I know, there's only 1 pair in captivity. And that animal, I mean, those animals, that animal's owned by Rodney Bolich.
Rodney, okay. Your boy Rodney. Shout out to Rodney.
Yeah.
What a pistol, that guy.
What a guy. What a guy. His character. One in a million. We
have, by the way, there's a lot of people waiting for this episode, but we have a date locked in for Rodney to come on Trap Talk. And by the way, it's gonna be when you're visiting, I think. We have it set up when you're so you're gonna be there, thank God. Because this is gonna be insane. But he's
I don't know. May have to sit that one out,
but let's talk about this real quick, because one thing about Rodney, as much as he could kind of be like, fuck, whoa, that was crazy, he does have kind of a purpose behind everything. And I feel like he's somebody who's very fed up. And you know, if you kind of dig to see what he's actually talking about, he's bringing a lot of truth to the surface. And what's crazy,
very truthful individual. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, and he'll definitely agree with that. But at the end of the day, he definitely what he's things that he does say, there are truth behind it. So not everything that I don't agree with every individual aspect, but he definitely is a man of the truth. The sheep need their shepherd.
And you would say like these localities like the Tarnates and the Halmaheras, I mean, your source of working with these is mainly Rodney, right?
Rodney was they originally, I believe that they were imported through Michael Cole, but Rodney outsourced them from individuals that were on the islands and were able to get them exported. If I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong on that.
Now, Stephen, if I know you're really brand new technically into kind of getting your feet wet with these scrubs, as far as what you have going on, but do you ever feel like there's a locality out there that's specifically only producing or having little tiny scrubs? Like, do you feel like that's ever going to be the case where you're going to be able to sell these small, tiny ass scrubs?
I mean, tannin bars already exist. Not too many in captivity anymore, but it's crazy. 100 to 200 scrub pythons I've dealt with in my time, and I haven't had one tannin bar scrub. It's kind of weird, but I think what's cool about scrub pythons at this point compared to retics is that importation is still allowed. Numbers have gone down drastically in the last few years, and honestly, I think it's for the best. But for instance, we got that Key Island scrub python from Blake back at Tinley. Right. Up until when the snake was in hand, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Is this a weird Highland? Is it a weird Clastolepis? Or is it something completely new? And then getting it in my hand, I realized instantly, like, wow, this is a brand new thing. This is not like any other scrub python I've ever seen. Right. That's one of those experiences that I feel like, you really only have a few opportunities in herpetoculture to experience something like that, where you get an animal in your hands where it's like, this might be the first time this has ever been in captivity. And that's pretty damn special. And there's definitely more scrub python localities out there that we don't have in the United States. Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you sent me a post of a scrub python found in Ternate, correct?
I don't know if it was exactly on Ternate, but I think it was within the northern Maluku island chain.
Wow.
But it was dark. It was really dark. It was almost like melanistic.
Yeah. So, I think that then lends into a long-term goal of mine is to be able to go over there and spend a couple weeks out there researching, collecting if it's possible and legal and all that, and really seeing what it's all about. Because I think right now with the scrubs, as we've said over and over again, the locality stuff is all total bullshit. There's some that are legitimate and you can't really deny, but then other things, it's like, okay, who's trying to sell a snake this week and name it something different than it was the week before? So,
well, since we were on the topic of dwarf and whatnot, I mean, if it's one thing I found out through the homie Casper, shout out to Casper, but he was telling me that Moluccans should be more looked at as a dwarf species of scrubs. Like they're like, meaning, I don't know, and I didn't really understand that because I seen yours, Steven, and they're big. Like they don't look like they're a dwarf.
So,
like,
Casper, he has a point. People out there, we've had these conversations too, Casper and I, about finding females on eggs that are 7 feet long. The very thin, like the thickness of like a medium rat. But then, we have a couple Moluccans that are pushing 12 feet, which, I mean, larger than almost all of our barnecks. It's hard to say. We didn't raise those snakes. We acquired them as adults, and I don't think I would have ever raised a Clastolepis to be that large. But they quite, obviously can. I've heard of one specimen that was allegedly 15 feet long in the United States that was completely melanistic. So,
I've seen pure super dwarfs, easily 10 foot, and maybe pushing damn near 11. But those snakes were fed very hard. So
I've had hands on a 9-foot tannin bar, and we've gotten eggs from a barneck that's smaller than that. So
wait, you had a tannin bar and now it's gone, or
no,
what?
I just was able to interact with it. This one belongs to Chris Foley, but
okay.
but no, I mean it was huge for a tannin bar. I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's an animal that I know how he raised it, and he definitely didn't overfeed it. It just happened to be one that it's older too. It's like a 20-something-year-old animal, but this tannin bar is just very large for what a tannin bar is supposed to be. So again, this is where it gets fun, learning all these things that may have been overlooked for so long, or we've decided, or as a community, that this is how one thing is, and then new information can come out later where it debunks, I guess, the way everybody was thinking before, and all that took was an open mind and reading the animals and kind of throwing your ego away and seeing what you can learn.
Also about Moluccans, from what I've discovered or what I talked to you about, Casper, is that the Xanthic Moluccans, they're only as hot as they are when they come out of the egg, and then they eventually, I guess, darkened up, and meaning like a lot of that blue hueish shit like that it goes away.
See that blue into adulthood is pretty rare.
Right.
You'll get some nice silvers getting into adulthood, and I think that the Xanthic in class Lepus is very interesting. Some of the babies that Marcel produced are beautiful, kind of a range of appearances. There are other ones that are completely patternless, some striped Xanthics out there. It almost seems like Xanthic in class Lepus exists similarly to how it does in tannin bars, where there's a potential that almost all class Lepus carry the Xanthic gene. Where it's not this one-off. It's not like, oh my God, look at this. There've been a number of them imported over the years. One's produced from two normal parents. Not
like
to take
within reticulated pythons.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much like what it is. Yeah,
it's the exact.
And
same
there's also, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but do you think that there's a possibility of other individuals, like for example, other localities of scrubs that have the capability of being axanthic or anathoristic?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, we have one bar that was captive bred that we have now, that I think displays everything that you can that you would look at to declare anathoristic or axanthic. Chris Foley has a sibling of it that looks almost identical, has that axanthic look, and then we have other siblings that don't exhibit that whatsoever. We have one snake that Andrew knows of. It's a southern that we believe might also be looking like an axanthic. So it's a relatively common genetic mutation from the wild caught. I mean, Halmaheras. We have a couple of Halmaheras that look axanthic, where some are very, very tan and brown, and then some are very silver.
I've seen the diversity in your Halmaheras, man, and they're very impressive. Like, it's like, whoa. It's like, I like it. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. One Halmahera in particular is particularly impressive. I'll say that much. Very, very yellow gold one.
You guys almost feel like almost any species, for the most part, especially the shit that we keep, there's like an impressive like transition of look and contrast that they start to give as they get older. I mean, I feel like some snakes have a true beauty as they have age on them. And Andrew, we won't talk about specific of the species, but you've acquired species that all have all sorts of age, like range of age, right? And the oldest ones are like on a different level. Like, I don't know what it is, but they just look a lot more like prehistorically like established.
Well, they just have a completely different color template, and also a variance of patterns. I mean, and I think that occurs within an array of different species, not just in particular with what I work with, but yeah.
And then, I mean, what would you say, Stephen, about like how we were talking about earlier, breeding like a super dwarf to a dwarf? I mean, there has to be lines that would be drawn if it came down to breeding certain species of scrubs back to each other, right? Like, you don't go Barneck to Halmahera, do you?
No. So this has been something that I've been thinking about for a long time, kind of as the market's evolving. Naturally this will happen. Naturally, crossbreedings are going to happen one way or another. It's kind of drawing those ethical lines. It already has. Yeah, and it's not like it's totally a new thing. And so it's do you get ahead of the curve and try some of it, or do you wait for somebody to really screw it up. I think species lines are one that you don't cross. I feel like Halmaheras should not be crossbred. I feel like Classilepis should not be crossbred. I think within Amethystina, cool things could come of crossbreeding. I mean, we have animals in our collection that are Southern Highland crosses that I think are absolutely beautiful.
And they best scrubs I've seen.
Yeah, I mean they're incredible. And because they both come from kind of the same area within the landmass. And then like with the northern types, you have your Barnecks, you have your Waminas, you got Beox. I could see potential for some crosses looking rather interesting from up there as well. We don't have any crossbreedings that we're actively working on at the moment, but it's not something that I'm totally against going forward. And especially with those Highland Southern crosses, the animals are already here. So, what would happen if you took that and bred it to a Highland again, or bred it to an Aru? What would happen? But I think the getting ahead of it portion comes with labeling them and then marketing them. I feel like with scrub pythons in particular, a good way to not let the crossbreeding get out of hand is by pricing them the same as pures, if not even a little bit lower, just to where the pure form of these localities is still the sought after commodity at the end of the day. Crazy colors and patterns and genetic mutation can come out of these crossbreedings that can open up new doors that we wouldn't have known of otherwise. But
so is there like a Steven potential like crossbreeding project like list you're already making, just fucking around, like just if in case you ever wanted to dabble, or you're not even?
Nothing I think about too hard. Nothing I think about really all that hard. I think it comes down to availability of adults, kind of pairs that I have ready to go in my head. And, maybe there's a male that's not too active of a breeder, but a female that's developing follicles, and I don't want to waste a season on her. If I have a cool pairing I could do that I feel like would be ethical and responsible and have a plan for the babies, then maybe then I would go ahead and do that. But going forward, everything will be focused on the pure first. Like one animal that's going to be interesting. It's still in quarantine, but after some testing, it'll come out as that Key Island male. Wow. That thing would be a real shame for that animal to never reproduce because there wasn't a female that looked like it. To me, that animal is very similar to an Aru. But then you look at it, Arus haven't been produced in the United States ever. They've been bred in Europe a couple of times. But if you have a female Aru, do you waste a breeding on a cross? I don't think you do. So does that Key Island go to something else? I guess it depends on what's available at the time in the collection. And that's where the fun is with all this, kind of shaping the future of the project, shaping the availability of what's out there. And just seeing what can happen, because it's so brand new. Even though scrubs have been bred for 20 years in captivity, the potential of it has not even begun to be realized.
Now, what about the price tag of things? Like we were talking to Andrew right now about Tarnates compared to Halmaheras and whatnot. Where does the line draw when it comes to pricing? We were talking what the average would be for a Barneck, but let's talk about the Highlands. I mean, a Moluccan clutch, if that were to ever happen. Like, I mean, what are we looking like? Would you say like the creamiest, highest end scrub that you could possibly breed would be a Moluccan, or is there possibly other species that if you could get down, it would go for more than a Moluccan?
No, I think at this point that's the top tier or Classilepis. I think some of the very high-end line-bred Barnecks in the future will be very high.
Highlands have a capability of really seeing some crazy different variations. I mean, in my opinion, and again, Stephen, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Highlands have, as far as variability goes, as Barnecks do. Like maybe not to the same full extent, but as far as like variations within one particular group of animals, like definitely a crazy array of looks. And different color palettes too.
I think the main reason why you wouldn't look at Highlands in the same light is the availability historically.
Right.
The most sought after look within the Highlands is the orange phase, obviously, and there have been very few orange Highlands available. Like let's say the last 7-8 years. I probably couldn't even count 20.
Yeah, those animals were virtually non-existent for a long period of time, or if they were, it was very small numbers. And then over the past, what would you say, 2.5, 3 years, they started coming in with some consistency.
Even that, yeah, I mean, maybe 2 years.
But now it's gone. I don't see any of them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where the craziness comes in, and there really haven't been too many Highland clutches produced historically. There are a few people in Europe who produce them, and the babies from the pairings have been incredible. But we don't really know what if you breed an orange Highland to a darker Highland, or mess with the contrast, or who knows? Targeting traits in scrub pythons in general, I feel like really just has almost not been done at all. VPI did it a little bit back in the day, and then they produced some incredible barnecks that we're very lucky to have some animals from their bloodlines in the collection now. But then again, it's very few. We have 4 animals in the collection that have those.
Some of the best looking, visually looking animals that I've seen.
Yeah, they're incredible.
The definition of like true line breeding within a species.
Yeah, so that's something that we're working on. 5 animals, but working on perpetuating, and then crossing in animals that we produced and whatnot, and going for high contrast, light base color, kind of that gold and black banded barneck. And I see that market going the kind of the way of green tree pythons, where you're the focus on lineage, on line breeding, and keeping track of that and having pride in where your animals came from will be a focus, because as we've seen, and I think we can't overlook it. I think the availability of wild caught scrub pythons, I think our days are numbered. When I was first getting into it, they were everywhere. Not ever in huge numbers, but every import list had scrub pythons. It was a commodity that came here from Indonesia. And these days, there may be a couple months that go by without a single scrub python on anyone's import list. And if I'm being honest, I don't pay attention to any of that anymore. But I have people that I talk to routinely who
I do. There's very few.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew's one of them. Chris is another person who keeps up on that a lot more than I do, and it's not what it used to be, and that's a good and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because the availability is gone, but I think it's a good thing because it puts pressure on us hobbyists to put our money where our mouth is and actually do something with these animals. Because the point, there's no point of bringing in imports if we're not going to breed them. Importation is a means to an end. It is not the end. It's the getting the animals here so that we don't need the importation anymore. And that's where the true conservation work of captivity can actually start, is when, and there haven't really been many surveys done on scrub pythons, but then also there isn't really evidence pointing towards there being a lacking population in the wild. But as is with everything, I just don't see the reason why not start now. Why not be like, oh shit, here we are in a situation where there are more scrub pythons in captivity than there are in the wild. We're definitely not there, but it's an opportunity we have to not have to face that reality ever.
And it's always that, human nature is that we always want things that we can't have. And it's like we've had access to these animals for years, decades. And it's taking now to the point where the animals have to start to disappear for people to start caring. And that's the wrong, narrative behind all of it, because that's how you see animals just never, I'm trying to really think of one off the top of my head that really, like, if it wasn't for captive settings, like, those animals would be virtually gone. Steven, maybe you could help me with it, but I'm drawing a blank one here, but
there's definitely
there are definitely some, and I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But for example, crested geckos.
Yeah, basically the whole kind of Leachianus complex.
Crested geckos nearly went extinct in the wild, and if it wasn't, I don't know how their wild populations are doing now, but that animal was literally re-brought back to life, due to captivity. And no one cared for the longest time. But now crested geckos and just the whole Rhacodactylus genus as a whole is booming.
I mean,
Shout out to all
American
the gecko
alligators,
guys.
another one.
Yeah, American
were
alligators.
in great decline and through captivity and alligator farming. Now there's too many of them. Now there's hunting
Now they're
season
nuisance again.
and which that's the way we want it. That's a lot better than the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how these animals could just really become invasive if it gets too much. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole Florida and the python crisis down there and whatnot. If it's not maintained and handled, yeah, it could get crazy. One thing before we get off the topic of the Moluccan talk real quick.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you'll, if you get to the point, Stephen, where you have not necessarily as many exantics as you do normals, but do you feel like the price should always be the same with an exantic versus a normal Moluccan?
I mean, that really comes down to availability, it's just a supply and demand thing. When there were imports, obviously there were many more normals than there were axanthics. Therefore, the axanthics demanded a higher price point. With Tannenbar scrub pythons, for instance, axanthic is the normal. So, when we were seeing them available, a yellow Tannenbar scrub was the rarity. Where, if you were coming from ball pythons or from carpet pythons or whatever, you'd be like, oh, the axanthic's the one I want. But it just comes down to availability. If the axanthics are the more common one, then the normals, quote unquote, the xanthic yellow phase is going to be the sought after one. And at this point with Costolepis, you can't really say which one's more available than the other in captivity because really none are available at all. So just it'll come down to supply and demand a little bit. If we get to the point where we do produce Costolepis and have some to move on to new homes, my goal is to get them in as many places that I feel like they should be as possible before doing public sales. And at that point, it'll be kind of, on us to figure out what the market can support and what's reasonable to not create kind of this hype market where, they end up being treated like Bowen's pythons, where it's unfortunate to see a species bastardized as terribly as they've been. And I don't know if we can recover because the people who've done the damage have a lot of attention on them. Right. But what we can do is create scenarios where that doesn't happen for other species that we care about.
And Andrew, I'm curious. I mean, do you ever felt like, since you're kind of in a position where you're producing high percentage stuff that isn't out there, like it's really up to you, as far as how much you want to price.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, for the longest time, anything that I was producing on a real high end sale was just for my own personal animals that I wanted to keep. As far as like now that I'm finally at a point to where I can say that I may have one, maybe two at most of like a really, really high end animal. Yeah, just kind of name your price and just kind of adjust and dictate the market as such. I just kind of base it off of what I'm seeing and for what it is and how long it took me to make it and kind of go from there.
I mean, I know we all can't stand a bargainer, right? But have you ever had to explain why you price something the way you price it, Andrew, to somebody? Like, has that ever?
All the time. Yeah, it's and the biggest thing is really just understanding the time. I mean, there's so many individuals that I've met personally that I've told them this, directly, that if I could go back in time and pay the price, for example, if I'm asking $10,000 for a snake or $15,000, if I could pay that price in comparison to going through everything that I went through to the process to get that, I'd pay it twice, maybe even 3 times, because the heartbreaks, the trials and tribulations, and all the things I went through to get said animal, in comparison, if I just have to pay someone and they did all the hard work for me, I would much rather do that.
I feel like the biggest thing you can never get back from all that trial and error is the time. Like, there's so much time you put into it, and you can't.
Yeah, that's the one thing you don't get back. That's the one thing you don't get back. And money, you can always make money as far as the time that you invest into these individuals and the lives that they revolve and how much they need you in order for them to be successful. I mean, it's definitely a commitment to itself, and you definitely don't get the time that you put into them back. But obviously, you get paid with experiences that you'll take to your grave.
And you got to look at We gotta look at two young motherfuckers who've put nothing but time into these animals. I mean, especially, yeah, Steven has a goatee, but he still hasn't really lived. Okay, let's be real.
Life.
He still needs to go to Vegas. We still need to take this guy to Vegas. Like he's got so much to
Hey,
plan.
dude, I got 2 layovers coming up this week in Vegas. We're living it up, man.
You're gonna go gamble in the airports. That sounds fun.
Exactly.
Now, listen, real quick. I want to say, what is it that you guys are focusing on this year that kind of helps yourself? Like, what I mean that obviously, as much as we're the Tarter boys, shit does get hectic, and we do need a little bit of time to reset, right? And I don't know, Andrew, maybe you traveling, does it feel like that resets you? Like
traveling, and then also just being in habitat where these animals are. I mean, I don't travel these days unless it's relevant towards something snakes. I mean, for the most part, that's all what my travels consist of. I mean, the only thing I could think of probably in the past 2 years of the travel that I have done maybe one trip that was not related to being out in the field. So that's yeah.
Steven,
Traveling.
What are we doing this year, Steven? What is Steven going to do to kind of like lighten the load off your shoulders, which is really hard to say. But I mean, have you ever kind of put into consideration on things that you maybe want to do, Steven, to help you out and help you kind of make your life easier when it comes to working with these animals every day?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we've been doing recently that I'm excited for is streamlining the collection a little bit. It's been kind of some real honest conversations between me and Desiree, just talking about what we want the future of RepTech to be.
Right.
And then, we have a very diverse collection, and I don't think we want to change that too much. But at the end of the day, you can only do so much, and you can only be successful with so much. And for us at this point, the 2 largest sectors of our collection are the scrub pythons, obviously, and then the montane venomous. And then, I one thing that's helped me is kind of sitting down and like categorizing the collection, really seeing where the priorities lay, and then making decisions about what do we have that we really like, but isn't quite as important, and that space and time and effort might be better spent somewhere else. And then maybe that animal will be a priority in somebody else's collection where, we're taking fine care of it, but it's not a top priority animal as far as like from a breeding project standpoint goes. So somebody else might be able to do more with that animal, and then kind of like, letting that selfishness go, prioritizing the animal over yourself and your ego or whatever. That's been something that's it's been an interesting thought process. It's been on my mind a lot, especially the last month or so, especially as, we're hopefully having success with scrub pythons, getting into the first real year breeding some of these venomous, trying to streamline some of the monitor projects we have to really focus on breeding some of them, et cetera. Having a clutch of chondros, having some more adults that are going to be ready to breed this year, and maybe putting a little more effort into the chondro breeding. But then with some other side projects, sending them off to other people that we trust will do well with them. And then opening up some free time instead of just, cleaning tubs, cleaning animals. You have a little bit of free time. Maybe you change those light bulbs that you should have changed a few months ago, or make that enclosure improvement you wanted to, redo a couple rattlesnake cages, whatever it is. And I can't say I've really had that experience yet of having a collection that's a little bit more manageable, because I feel like I've tried to fill every spare moment I have with more things to take care of. And it's been fine. It's been working. It's not like it's some sort of tragedy, but what would life be like if it wasn't like that? The trip that Andrew and I took out to West Texas, visit our buddy Kyle Vargas, who you had on the show about a month ago or so, went herping in the mountains, found some animals, just, had a great time, but also had time to kind of sit back, think, get perspective on everything, slow down for a second. Being up in the mountains where you have no cell service, you're there and that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
You're present.
The world back at home doesn't matter. What's going on back in the town there doesn't matter. Like, we're we're really in. We're just
Oh,
And the reason
service.
why I
Sorry.
consist my life of travel so much is just getting that point of being present, and in that current state that you're in, because just working with animals, and especially at a large scale, and whether if it's your own collection or working for someone else's, it's really time consuming and really just takes a large part of your life if you take it to this extent. And it's something that I can definitely say anytime I get to, even if it's just day trips, which I do, pretty frequently, it's just that moment of being present and being able to step away from what I'm currently doing allows me to just realize and also appreciate how precious human life is, and also the animals that we get to work with, and, blessed.
Yeah. Well, and then, for me being out there too, it was crazy because I've never before been able to be in the environment of animals I keep in captivity.
Changes your perspective.
It changes your perspective, and then it also kind of like a hunger built of, let's do that with more things that I keep. And then it also kind of enhanced the passion for that project. It was already something that, as we say, that we were knee deep in. And now I think we're full on waist deep in that project. And, understanding that, seeing Kyle's collection, which is, you could argue probably the best montane rattlesnake collection in the world. And somebody who's been wildly successful with them for 15 years and was willing to share knowledge with us. It really, really ignited that fire more than it already was. So something that, has built up, and Andrew and I were talking the other day, and I'm like, how did we get here? I didn't even notice it. It really didn't. I'm like, wow, this is now officially
it just consumes you. Yeah.
You have, but I think the same thing that with the scrub pythons got me was the variability within the complex, locality type, species, the habitat being so fascinating, that montane climate, and being so different than other stuff that we work with. A 10-foot python and a 2-foot rattlesnake are such insanely different animals from a physiological standpoint. The climate being totally different, where that room with the scrub pythons, the coldest night of the winter, maybe it's 69 degrees, but the coldest night of the winter in the montane room, maybe it's 39 degrees.
It's crazy.
So totally night and day different, totally different than crocodilians, totally different than colubrids.
Gives you a different respect for the animals and just how tough they actually are in the environment,
what
especially
reptiles can put up with. We don't think about reptiles like that.
How they make their lives, for an animal that has no arms and legs and lives in this environment and thrives in it is just mesmerizing.
That's
and
why
they live in such incredible places too. Like, just if I could pick anywhere, anywhere to live in the United States where some of those snakes live is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's just, I guess on the topic of traveling, something that I definitely want to do more. I'd like to be able to go back to being able to see some facilities of people who I really look up to, and kind of learn from the people who've been doing it at the highest level. There's always something you want to do, right? And it's just finding that time and finding that balance. And I'm sure as hell not nearly there, but at least now I have it in my mind to kind of work towards it. So
maybe 2023, I could get you to a remote podcast somewhere, or someone legendary's location, like a Marshall Mendez episode. You'd fly in for that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Then we'll meet Andrew in the mountains.
Sure, I'm down.
Good luck with the service. May have to be a pre-recorded episode, but
yeah, for real. Listen, I want to do a wrap-up super chat question real quick, and I'm sure this is going to be. Well, actually, I want to know about scrubs too in this case, because I don't know. Is it safe to say that there are probably hundreds of SD island localities, or even maybe scrub localities out there that have never been discovered before, let alone
100%, 100%. As far as just really just being able to go there and just getting access. A lot of these places are, it's a 24-hour, maybe 36-hour plane ride just to get to one part, and then on top of it, maybe another 24 to 48 hours on boat, donkey, some type of transport that isn't your everyday. Yeah. It's just the accessibility is really the biggest thing. But to say that there, aren't animals, in particular reticulated pythons and scrubs, that come from all these different island chains, definitely, those animals are definitely there. It's just getting there.
Well, one thing that with scrub pythons is different than retics. There's an entire half of the landmass of Papua New Guinea that we have never had animals from in captivity. The eastern part of the island of Papua New Guinea. Like you can't even go there.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark
Imagine
O'Shea.
what the highlands look like.
I mean, it should be incredible. Mark O'Shea was there documenting some, took pictures, and in one of the Barker's Python books, they published some of those images, and these scrub pythons. I mean, I have chills right now thinking about it. They look completely different than anything we have ever seen before.
Wow.
And that's not even considering what we've missed from the areas that we have been collecting from and seeing animals from. But there's an entire side of the country that is entirely untapped. So absolutely, there's an incredible stuff out there that we have never seen yet, and I
don't think we ever will. Maybe we will unless we go there. It's just getting
there.
Permission. Yeah, it's just getting there.
Especially someone looking like me getting on that island. It's going to be tough. They don't like our kind over there. So, I mean, but it's cool to have that pipe dream at the end of the line. If everything was accessible and easy, I don't think it would be so fun. So.
Right on. Well, listen, this has been a great episode. Do you have anything you want to wrap up with, Andrew? Anything off the top of your mind? Well, first off, I want to say, Andrew, production wise, you still have Super Dwarf stock available, right? Like, is there?
I do have some availability.
Is some of the best way to get a hold of you, maybe Instagram, or how are people best way to kind of contact you?
Instagram, Facebook, Morph Market. Yeah.
Okay.
Those
and
are
then
the three main platforms that I do use.
Now, Steven, I know here's Steven's Instagram. You want to give him a follow. But, Steven, as far as stuff that you will have available once that time comes, is that going to be mostly displayed on the RepTech page, or where will you be having animals available? I know you give a list out every now and then, but where can people find this? Like, what's the best way for people to stay on top of this? Yeah,
Facebook and Instagram primarily. Every day I'm thinking to myself, I need to do a morph market. So yeah, and then so my personal pages, RepTech's pages on Facebook and Instagram, Desiree's pages on Facebook and Instagram as well. She'll post up all the same type of thing when we're selling animals. So that's where you'll find our stuff. Desiree, myself, RepTech, Cold Blooded Cafe across Facebook, Instagram. Shameless plug for coldbloodedcafe.com, where you get the freshest and the bestest frozen rodents delivered to your door.
So we kind of fucked up, and I guess we could end it with that because, I don't really go into the podcasts as doing my 10-minute spiel, but I do kind of pick the one main sponsor of the episode, and it's going to be Cold Blooded Cafe. So yeah, let's end it with a bang and something proper. The freshest and bestest #1 frozen thawed rodent company in the game. And best way to do is go to the website, right? So www.coldbloodedcafe.com. And then obviously right now there's no shipping on Monday due to
Yep.
I'm trying to say
due to
4th of July. Right. So that's important.
This week, if you live in
that's not it.
No.
Coldblooded.com.
Coldblooded.com.
Wait a minute.
If you live on the West Coast in South Florida, South Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, New England, the Montana, North Dakota, we will not be shipping to you this week due to the transit time and with the holiday. So 3 and 4 day transit zones we will be pushing to next week, so that you can get your order frozen the right way, the way that it's supposed to be. But still our 1 and 2 day shipments. So, the Midwest, parts of the South that are close to us, I got Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Northern Florida, northern parts of Texas, et cetera, et cetera. New York, Pennsylvania, you'll all be getting your orders out this week. It'll just be a day later than it normally is.
Hell yeah. Well, amazing episode. Shout out to everyone who tapped in. I want to say shout out to my Patreon members because this week is going to go down. Who's ready to kick with my homies, Steven and Andrew? Andrew, are you guys ready for fucking Trap Fest? going down
No.
this Thursday? You're not ready?
Nobody's
Not ready.
ready.
Nobody's ready.
ready.
Not even a little bit.
Nobody is ready.
Listen, strictly invite only for my Patreon members. And then, like I said, there's going to be many, many, many big homies of mine are going to be tapping in, like Steven, Andrew, Desiree. We got Sim Container that are going to be pulling through. We got Freedom Breeder who's going to be coming through. You just don't know who the fuck's going to pull up to Trap Fest, but you better have credentials because it's going to be like Capone, sick balls, and it's over. You feel me? I'm just kidding. Listen, I cannot wait to kick it with you guys. It's going to be going down. But yeah, man, it's a wrap. We're out. Thank you so much. Tarter Boys session. We'll see you next time. Cheers.